Hey guys, I'm here to review Halo Reach, and by extension, the uh, maybe the other Halo games as well. But Halo Reach, yeah, this was the very hyped up Halo sequel. Again, I've already said that I wasn't a huge fan of the games past Halo 3, and so this was Bungie's last kind of foray into the Halo universe before they were like, all right, well, our contract's up. We're going to go do different stuff now. So how do I feel about Reach? Kind of very just mid. It's honestly kind of forgettable. They added, armor abilities in this one. So you have, armor lock, sprint. I think like a little hologram thing you can do. So these are like the new things they added to like keep things fresh, and I don't really think they, had a lot of staying power. I think sprint is a very contentious issue within the Halo community, whether it's useful or not. I personally don't think it's necessary at all. It should function almost like Counter-Strike, where, you just have a set speed, maybe depending on what you carry, but no, you should just have a set speed and use that button for something else, really. So Halo Reach's story. This is where I have a lot of conflicting options. So George, first of all, is the best character in this entire story, and I really like how they have this team and this squad that moves with you and fights with you, but they kind of get picked off one by one until the end of the game. My favorite parts of the game is just George, how he's a classic Spartan 2. He works with you, and on the ship, he basically stays behind as a noble sacrifice. It's something that's very Spartan 2-esque, while the other kind of Spartans are Spartan 3s, or Spartan 4s, and they're designed, one of the lore, they're designed with basically chemical implants and they're kind of the mass production Spartans that were not technically supposed to take place, and basically designed for suicide missions, basically. So they're not as robust as the original Spartan 2s, or even Spartan 1s for that matter. So I think Georgia was a great character. But yeah, no, the other Spartans, they just kind of die one by one. Cat gets friggin' shot in the head just randomly. And it's like, oh wow, the epic character of Cat. It's a problem, and it's interesting too, because George is the first one to go, and he leaves the strongest impression, while the other characters I do not care about them. Like Emil is just this edgelord who has a skull on his helmet, who ends up, taking out a bunch of guys CQC near the end of the game and gets taken out that way. There's Carter, and, I don't even remember what happens to the rest of them, or the last one, rather. They just don't leave a very strong impression. It seems like Halo, outside of the main cast and these spin-off games, just do not match up with the rest of the Halo cast. They're just not fun. They're not interesting. And they don't really draw any good characteristics. Again, except for George, who has the shortest time and leaves the biggest impact, which is just crazy to me. It's just not great. And the whole point is that, oh, you're supposed to feel the emotional drain of losing your squad as you go through this mission, and I just don't. The other thing I really don't like about Reach is, again, this is supposed to be the military homeworld for humanity. When you see the huge warthog rolling in through, the Halo 1 cutscene, and you see in Halo 2, the Cairo station and the giant, attack platforms circling Earth, that gives you a huge feeling for like a military presence and a huge, base. And so Reach was used as the training ground for a lot of Spartans and a lot of military operations. And you just don't get that vibe. You just have these abandoned structures, lots of civilians, the city, but you don't see giant gun turrets floating in the sky. You don't see this massive, how do I say, military buildup that is, or that was the full strength of the UNSC and the full human army. I just never got that vibe from this game. It felt more like a civilian outskirt, based on the periphery. So there's another thing that I just didn't like about it. And everything they added, I think they removed dual wielding in this game, so now you can just hold, single-handed weapons. They added a couple new things like a Covenant grenade launcher kind of thing. They, changed up the control system. They added a bunch of new things that I frankly just never really cared for. And a lot of Halo 4 is going to be used as kind of copying this formula. I feel like they did rebalance the assault rifle though, so at least it's more powerful now, and more balanced with the rest of the game. The multiplayer was all right. I mean, it wasn't awful or anything. Just armor abilities just made it feel very different. I think I do appreciate it more than Halo 3, but it still wasn't something that really grabbed me as much as Halo 2 did. I think I'll just jump right into it since it's just top of mind. The one thing that is, I think, very cool actually, and a very iconic scene from this game is the final mission, which is Survive. That was honestly the highlight of the game for me, that I thought, okay, cool, this is actually a great way to send off the character. We know it's the fall of Reach, we know Reach falls, and to send off the main character with this great kind of, send off that he's basically going to sacrifice himself, but it's up to you, the player, to see how far he gets. That's actually a really cool little segment of the game. And I think that definitely will live on as kind of Reach's reputation when you see that Survive thing. It's definitely really, really cool. I think it was cool that, you had a lot of, squad missions, and you had things where you had to, fly helicopters from building to building. I guess that was kind of fun. It felt like kind of a breach and clear kind of modality. But again, this whole game feels very mid. We're still kind of hyping off the fumes of Halo 3 and Halo ODST, which was pretty decent, or half decent. DLC. I really was not a huge fan of ODST now that I think about it, simply because, again, the characters just friggin' sucked. And even Buck from ODST is then a Spartan in Halo 5 or something in the future. And it just feels so out of place. I like the idea of ODST, not having shields and they're more vulnerable. You have to do more stealth missions, but the game pretty much plays exactly the same. You have these big, wide open areas. It's not like you're doing a bunch of secret stealth things. It's not like you have a rappel mechanic or a sneak mechanic. The commercials for ODST were amazing, but the game itself, I was really not into it. And I kind of feel that same kind of mid creative wavering with Reach as well. They don't really introduce any new killer weapons. There's things that are slight variations of other weapons. Again, the multiplayer was serviceable, but it was nothing truly super amazing. And I think by the time Halo 4 rolled around, I just kind of put down the controller after beating Halo 4 and thought, I can't do this anymore. I'm just not feeling it. Yeah, honestly, I can't really think of anything else to say about Halo Reach, to be honest with you, except it just did not live up to my expectations, which were already kind of mid or low. It just was a very whatever game. I can't really even say it's necessary to play it in the story of the Halo franchise, because it takes place during a time that's honestly better explained by the books, and the game itself is nothing like how the books describe. So yeah, it felt like really, this is the game where they were kind of training and teaching 343, and I think there's a lot of 343 DNA in this game before they kind of took over the entire franchise. So I felt like this was almost like a mandatory transitionary game and goodbye phase. And for that reason, I feel like the devs did not care, and by extension, I do not really care either. I'm going to combine this with my Halo Reach review because I really don't have much to say about it, and similar to this game, I don't have a lot to say about it either. When Bungie announced that their contract was up and they were leaving, I kind of got the feeling that, okay, this is it, this is over. And what occurred was, Microsoft was like, no, we're handing it over to 343. And when Epic Games said, oh no, we're done with Gears of War, they said, no, now Black Tusk, or now it's called the Coalition, is going to take over Gears of War. And I just knew from the get-go, like, guys, I don't care how much training, how much, whatever oversight they have from the original Bungie staff. A company that is literally called 343, that is based around like a reference to Guilty Spark, it's just not going to be the same game. It's not going to be Halo. And the future of Halo past this point has been plagued and is plagued with a constant stream of the developers saying, oh, well, we need a copy from Call of Duty. We need a copy from this game. We need a copy from this game. And they just cannot innovate at all. There's so many things that I just don't like about this game, and it's hard to put my finger on it because it's fundamentally, it says it's Halo. It has Halo in the title. All the guns basically function more or less the same. But the DNA, the soul of the game, is just so not Halo that it's just painful. For example, 343, they started this new kind of elite design ever since Reach, that they look more dehumanized and more monstrous, less of an ally like the Arbiter. And Halo 2. Another thing that I really severely dislike about this game right off the bat is where they take the story with the friggin' Forerunners and the Didact, who is the most forgettable villain ever. And essentially it's like, oh, you literally are Forerunner, and this is I don't care if this is spoilers, because it's only a halfway mid-game spoiler, and it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen, where you find the library or something. No, not the library, something else, like the archives. And they say, oh, Master Chief John Spartan 117 was genetically predicted to be the chosen one to release this thing and free the Forerunners. And John is in his little cryopod after Halo 3, and he wakes up, and all this stuff occurs. And the fact that he's just chosen, that it was his destiny for all these things to happen genetically, and there's just it just sounds so fake. I don't know how else to say it. It sounds ridiculous. And the other big issue I have with this game is the fact that you're fighting Forerunner technology, and you're using Forerunner technology, and there's these little kind of dinky kind of plasma weapons that are these bright yellow things that work and function exactly the same as assault rifles and shotguns and all the rest of it. It just feels so lazy in terms of writing, and they're just making the game for the sake of making the game and carrying on the Halo legacy without actually having a proper vision of what Halo really truly is. Another example of what I'm talking about is, I just have to say it right now, the ending to this game, the final boss fight, I honestly cringed, because the final boss fight is a QuickTime event. That's how you defeat the final boss. The most memorable Didact, who definitely is such an amazing character, he will definitely return. Didact will return. You kill him with the QTE, and it's the most underwhelming, modern, lazy game design thing I've ever seen. That kind of made me never want to touch the campaign again. I just absolutely wanted nothing to do with it. It was just disgusting to me. Despite all this, I would say that Halo 4 had some of the strongest multiplayer since Halo 2. If I'm not playing Halo 2 multiplayer on the Master Chief Collection, I'm playing Halo 4, mainly because my go-to weapon is the DMR. I don't know, I'm just a sucker for those kind of weapons. They messed around with armor abilities, or, you know, a little bit in this game where you know, everyone basically had sprint, but then they had their own ability of, you know, camouflage or jetpack or, you know, some other variation. So it's kind of cool. I mean, it's kind of good, honestly. We got away from equipment and stuff and armor abilities, even though these technically are just armor abilities, like number 2. But they felt more useful, I guess. And then sprint became a staple of the Halo franchise, which is, again, a very contestable, debatable subject. So that's kind of my main thoughts on the Halo campaign. The multiplayer was kind of... I mean, I hate the fact that they did this borrow loadouts from Call of Duty, but they did make sense. Like, okay, you're going to have a loadout for each, like, armor ability or whatever, from, you know, your stealth to whatever. And I did have a pretty decent time with the Halo 4 multiplayer. What I found really weird is that you could edit the loadout to have like different weapons as well and different grenade types. So they were like, there's like really trying to copy from Call of Duty. They really, from the get-go, we're not sure what direction to take this, and we're just copying from peers, which is what Halo and Bungie does not do. They are innovators. And I guess we shouldn't be surprised how bad Halo is, and you know, it's just not the game we want it to be. It's not innovative, it's not interesting, it's just the same old FPS garbage we're being fed by everyone else, more or less. I mean, it still did innovate somewhat, but just never in an interesting direction. It was always like, yeah, I'm not really impressed by this. That being said, again, like, it's not awful. There's not one specific thing I could point to say this ruined the entire franchise. It just wasn't Halo, and there's just no other way to put it. There's no other way to get around it. That they're trying to make a Halo game by not making a Halo game and making a game that has Call of Duty and everything else inside of it. And this trend would continue into Halo 5, which I'm not going to devote an entire video to. Halo 5 was like, oh, you know, we all want competitive multiplayer. The main reason I didn't get Halo 5, honestly, is that it didn't have any split-screen co-op, and they wanted to optimize it for the single-player experience so it could run at 60 FPS or whatever. And I just thought that's the most un-Halo thing I've ever seen. The idea that you would cut campaign co-op from Halo just shows how little they understand the actual game. And like, oh, no, they would say, oh, it doesn't matter. It's, you know, it's not that important. Yeah, no, it's pretty damn important. It's part of the DNA of the entire game. It's like removing, I don't know, the hood from the car. It's just like, what are you even thinking? This is not how it works. Yeah, this is probably the only Halo game where I played the campaign once, and I was like, okay, I never want to touch it again. Halo 5, oh my god. I watched it on YouTube, honestly. That's how disheartening I was from it. And when I watched on YouTube, I just saw the most atrocious things. Buck is now a Spartan 3 from ODST. Oh god. There's this one line about the you go to the Sangheili homeland, or homeworld apparently, which looks completely uninspired and incredibly boring. And there's this line about how Sangheili allowed the female warriors into their ranks and how progressive they are. And I was like, this is not happening. And spoilers with Halo 5, the main antagonist turns out to be Cortana, because she goes crazy because she's a rampant AI, which is lore that we had, you know, in the Halo 1 books that rampant AIs could happen, but now she's really going rampant. And Chief has to decide between Cortana and, his crew. And it's kind of an interesting conflict at the beginning, but then it just becomes, oh, she's the bad guy, we have to defeat her. And it's not interesting anymore. The other thing that I absolutely despised and hated was the entire marketing for this game. For Halo 5 it was like Halo 5 Master Chief, hero or villain, and it showed this whole thing where the new Spartan, kills Master Chief or seemingly kills Master Chief, and none of that happens in the game. He's actually Chief's ally. I mean, they have a rival team, and I think they have Linda and some of the other characters from the book, but it's impossible to like really appreciate or tell them apart because they like don't really interact a lot with each other, and they don't seem to interact with each other like they know each other. Again, the whole thing is just a complete disaster. And the other thing they changed in Halo 5 in terms of gameplay and multiplayer was like you can sprint and mantle and basically crouch, run, or whatever, or slide, and everything was built around emblems, MLG, making a video game-esque video game. Like it was the most generic kind of, hey, we want an MLG experience for gamers to have like a lot of fun and like go really hardcore in the arena and have a lot of fun fighting each other. No, the fun wasn't the word, it was competitiveness. They said Halo was always a competitive multiplayer game. That's what they said for Halo 5, and nothing could be further from the truth. It's a cooperative game, and they like the mismanaging of the IEP is just honestly incredible. And I'm so glad I don't own Halo 5 because it is an absolutely cursed title. Again, there's nothing necessarily super wrong with the gameplay itself. Like, it's serviceable, but it's not Halo. There's nothing about it that was like, oh yeah, this is amazing. And also what they started to do with Halo 5 is they added ADS, or aim down sights, which is Call of Duty. As time went on, Halo just became more and more like Call of Duty. They just did not know what to do with the game at all. And it just really, really shows. And even after Halo Infinite, they just had a whole series of creative directors leave, and no one had a vision of what to do. It was kind of crazy how bad it was. And so yeah, the story is like the Didact is this ancient forerunner, I guess, who looks like the most basic humanoid design that you'd see on a budget Star Trek film or a TV show, and he basically like, oh, I'm the real forerunner and I'm here to usurp Master Chief. And he's never mentioned ever again, even though at the end credits of Halo 4 is like, you thought you killed me, but this is only the beginning of my master plan. And it's like, wow, I hope we don't hear from him ever again. And you don't, so congratulations, you never hear from him ever again. So his master plan obviously failed. Yeah, and I don't think there's really anything else I can say about Halo 5 from what I gleaned from it. That game makes me feel awful. And yeah, that's pretty much what happened to Halo after Halo 3. You had basically Microsoft trying to keep the gravy train running on their only successful IP until they end up like abandoning it in Halo Infinite, and I guess I might as well talk about Halo Infinite here. Halo Infinite, actually, I really enjoy that game. The grappling hook system worked really well. The open world worked really well. You had very clearly defined outposts that weren't super, difficult to get around, to figure things out. I think it's really funny that in the modern era of gaming, you would see things like the vision ability, so that you actually knew what to look at, because there's so much, how do you call it? There's so much visual unclarity in the environment, and there's so much stuff to look at that you need a little vision thing to highlight and color code things that you actually can pick up and can process in the environment. And I really like how, honestly, I like the basic gameplay of Halo Infinite. It's actually the best 343 installment of the series. And it was kind of thought that this would save them after the travesty that was Halo 5. I really love exploring the base. The grappling hook feels really good. All the guns feel really good, except for like the plasma rifle. It's just completely useless. I love the pistol. The pistol in Infinite is probably my favorite out of all of them. And this is kind of a game I really wanted to say, oh wow, Halo is back. I really wanted to think, okay, 343 actually knows what they're doing. They're innovating. They can actually figure things out. The fact you can pick up the plasma coils is so much fun. And the game itself is really fun. The music is good. The gameplay is good, has a good flow to it. You know predictably what's going to happen in each kind of base. You'll encounter enemies in the open world. It has that vibe of like Halo when you're in the open world at the beginning of the very first game, and you're kind of exploring and finding things to do. There's a bunch of side quests like bounties and other things to blow up and destroy outside of the main quest. And it's interesting how they deal with the main quest in an open world. It's kind of like you enter into this locked scenario, and if you leave that location, in the open world, it'll like restart, and you have to go back and restart it, which is kind of like, okay, that makes sense. All the guns do feel really good. The vehicles feel really good. What's also really great is they've really created a proper of like a fun brute faction to fight. A lot of there's Atriox and oh god, I forgot the other guy's name, but one of them is from Halo Wars 2, which links up to this game. And it's funny how they took Halo, the original Halo concept as an RTS, and they turned it into Halo Wars, which I really did not like. And they made it an RTS specifically for console, which just showed to me that RTS just does not work on console. It should never work on console. It's just never going to happen unless it's super, super simplified and streamlined in some manner, and the UI completely changes. Again, the hit marker, when you headshot an enemy and you get that red mark, that is, it's the best feeling. They really nailed that. And I'd like to say that all these things together make Halo Infinite a salvageable game, and they do. Like, it's good, but man, again, like with Atriox and the other Brute Chieftain characters, they are very memorable. They are very kind of realer characters, if that's a way to put it. They feel, even though they have their primal tinge to them, they have this warrior honors, this warrior's code, this honor of battle that they bring with them, which makes them much more interesting enemies to fight. How they revel in, victory and pain and struggle. And the brute weapons are a lot more interesting. There's brute banshees and brute ghosts and brute choppers, obviously. So the Banished themselves, which is this faction of brutes, feel a lot more serious, essentially. Probably my other favorite thing is that how everything explodes in this game. The friggin' like fuel rods, if you hit one, like 20 of them are going to explode. They tend to spin out of control. Really, really fun stuff. But again, I was just saying, is it enough to salvage Halo? And to salvage the entire franchise, I don't think it is. They really need to consider what they're going to do next for their next move. Their whole point was to make this more of a live service game and a long-term game that actually had a free online multiplayer, and it's like half working. It's very mid at best. The shotgun in this game is complete trash. It's really not useful at all. They introduced some new weapons like the Hydra, which is this lock-on mini rocket system, which is really cool. But then there's things like, they have shop and cosmetics where you go around. You can even find them in the open worlds for single player, where you'll unlock cosmetics for your guns, and like little skins and stuff. they did this whole kind of reboot thing with Cortana, which really was uh really kind of frustratingly dumb and redundant. It's like, okay, so they redid her character where Cortana died, but she left behind a mini version of herself called, well, her name is Weapon, which is the dumbest name I've ever heard. Oh my god. And then you have this other guy who's like, this like, Mexican guy. He's like friends with the chief, and he's like, hey, chief, or this Spanish guy or something. And so his personality is that he's always like, he's a worrywart. He's like supposed to be kind of comic relief, and it's kind of funny sometimes, but most of the time he's just whining and complaining and completely, pathetic. And it's supposed to be like the foil to the chief, who's like super independent and can do anything. And it is kind of funny how like he'll always complain, and chief will be like, this is easy, don't worry about it. But honestly, he's more annoying than anything, and I don't even remember his name. But yeah, and he's like, oh, we can't do this, is impossible, we can't do this. And chief is like, wait here, like, and get the plane, get the Pelican ready. Yeah, I again, I kind of want to like this character, but I just can't. And anyway, so Weapon, honestly, I like Weapon's personality. It's a younger, quirkier, more naive Cortana who is much more upbeat, and is actually, again, it fits into that great chemistry between the silent protagonist, or mostly silent protagonist, and his AI companion. It's just really kind of cringy what they did with her character, how they over explored the fact that she was a rampant AI and now she's scared of going rampant herself. And again, it doesn't make sense how Cortana, created this mini version of herself, especially when so in the story in Halo 5, the way it ended was that Cortana basically was controlling these Forerunner mechs, and she was this big, bad, evil thing. And she's just kind of defeated in this one. There's been a time skip, and she's just like, yeah, she went rampant and she died and killed herself, but she left left over Cortana too. So it's like, it kind of works, but it's also so inconsistent with the previous installments, and it's so lazy, and it's almost like they wanted to erase their previous work and just start over. And honestly, I get that, and it makes sense. But again, like, you're just like, oh, this is Cortana 2, we're starting over. And it's just so lazy. And the fact, oh, you're on Zeta Halo. You're on another Halo that you just happen to come across somewhere in the universe. And yeah, it's just so painfully trite. And it's like, okay, so if you're here, are they trying to activate Halo? No, the Banisher trying to amass an armada to go back and take over Earth. They're just doing their own thing. I think it is nice though that they have a very clear map and layout of what you're missing. So even though it's an open world map, it's generally pretty small, and you can always find exactly what you're looking for. If you're like hunting for all the stuff in the map or in a base, it'll kind of show itself very clearly. One of my favorite things is actually open the Spartan core, is the sound effect when that happens, and everything is really iconic to Halo Infinite. There's also cool things too, that as you upgrade and get more bravery points or whatever, you can get different weapons in the loadout at bases. You can get different vehicles and stuff, and that's really cool and really fun if I could play with a friend. And, before launch, they said, hey, Halo Infinite won't have co-op at launch campaign, but we promise we're going to do it because we understand that it's part of Halo's DNA. And I was like, oh, good, they understand us. They know exactly what we're thinking. And lo and behold, like a year and a half later, they said co-op is not coming to campaign. And that was the moment when everyone said, okay, you know what? Halo's dead. You can't just keep disappointing us like this. You can't keep promising things, doing half measures. You have to make up for like 2 bad games and now you've brought us this, and it's just pathetic. Also, Cortana's design is, I don't know, it's just lame. Or sorry, weapons design, excuse me. It's just kind of lame. It's kind of nothing like her original design, which actually had a lot of interesting like code running like through her body and all this stuff. She's just like a little human, and it's just not interesting. Again, the relationship is good. They do half things that are half good, but Halo Infinite is not nowhere near the killer app that it needs to be. And I think a lot of that also has to do with the multiplayer. And the multiplayer itself is fine. It's fun. But again, if I had to choose between the Chief Collection and this, I would kind of play a few rounds of this and then move on. I'd move on to the Chief Collection. Halo Infinite, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So on the co-op front, some guy was able to get it to glitch. Some guy glitched it to happen, and it was just a matter of saving. So if it's that easy for some random person to get it glitched into, and the multi-billion-dollar company can't figure it out, it's ridiculous. And this is the same project that had 3 visionary directors leave during the project, multi-year thing, nothing but promises and empty promises from the staff. What was her name? Bonnie Ross. It's honestly just pathetic. That's the only word for it. It's pathetic. And it's like, you could do this 5 years ago and you can't do it now. It's like, what happened? Again, this game, it hits a lot of right notes, but it feels like this is what Halo 4 should have been. This is like them getting their feet wet. And it's a half good game, and that's not going to cut it for the long run. Again, the multiplayer, I don't know, the fact that they have like these AI voices in multiplayer saying, Hill captured, Hill controlled, where it's not the announcer, it's some weird thing that you can download and buy. And also now, of course, you can buy all these little keychains for your gun if you're feeling, ultra trendy and on point. The fact that you can buy all of these decals for your weapon or whatever. They want to make it a live service game. They want to make this the next big thing. And it's so frustrating how monetization has infected the cancer of everything. God, again, the grappling hook, it's great. The campaign is actually pretty decent. It gets pretty repetitive after a while. But even so, it's like, it's not bad, but it's not great. And they needed this game to be great. And then post-launch, they just keep making more mistakes. One of them being, of course, the failure to deliver features that they absolutely promised were going to be there. I didn't play this game for years because I was waiting for co-op to drop so I could buy it, and then I would know I could play with my brothers, as I always do. And you're like, nope, can't do that anymore. I was like, great. To clarify, it's local co-op that they didn't bring in. I think multiplayer online co-op you can still do, but yeah. It kind of shows you where the market is heading and what people want. And it's like, well, people already bought it anyway, so we got the money. We don't have to do it now. It's like, great. That's what game development is now. The other problem is, of course, with the multiplayer. I haven't really followed it too closely, but they had a problem. They were putting match EXP into beta. They couldn't get EXP from matches to work in multiplayer, which is insane. Like a year after the game launched. At the same time, they announced that co-op wouldn't be coming, and they also announced that like they were gonna add a new season. It was like on 2 seasons for almost like 2 years, maybe. Like they couldn't create another season. Like at least the one thing, the multiplayer that at least could salvage the game from a normie perspective, they can't even do that. That's what's shocking to me. And when they did bring season 3. The maps that they brought were freaking Forge maps. Like things that other people, the fans, created. The laziest lowest bottom of the barrel bastard thing. And so once I played it on that season and saw what they did, and the maps themselves also, despite being Forge, did suck. They were not great, and they were bare bones. And like, you know, when you just play a Forge map that someone else has made and you can just tell this was made by a fan and not made by an actual game developer, that's what I felt when I played those maps. And I just thought, you know what, I'm not subjecting myself to this. I'm not playing a subpar experience. I have other games to play, other experiences to get to, and if your perspective is that you're going to patch and fix this game slowly over years while everyone else outcompetes you, you are smoking silly juice. And I'm not going to be a part of it. Again, I would honestly recommend this game for the campaign. As short as it is, it's like a solid, 7 out of 10 kind of Halo, like a mid Halo. But again, it's like it's taken them this long to get to this point, and they've messed up the story so badly. They've borrowed from all other lore, all other pieces of the franchise, used fake tacking marketing, and basically done bare bones in terms of like lore and characters. At least the Brute Chieftains are like proper villains. I mean, somewhat. The dialogue is pretty good, but it's like this is like where they should have been almost a decade ago. So this is where Halo is now. I actually ended up, finding all the things in the campaign. I almost like basically completed it, did all of it. I didn't feel good when I finished it, as I thought I would, but it was small enough that and easy enough that I could do it in almost a weekend, basically. Again, I wish I had something more positive to say, but at this point, Bungie has moved on in making the Destiny games, which, again, the story was, there was something weird where like they fired all the story and people and the writers, and then they had the rights to the game, so they actually ended up having copyright against it when it launched, so that people couldn't actually experience the story, and they had to cut like 90% of it. And so Destiny is just this weird husk of a game where it has all the combat, but none of the story or the lore or the feel of the game that it should. And it's just like a very strange beast because of that. And now Destiny is like, well, okay, screw the story. I guess we'll just focus on gameplay, making this like a live service-ish game. I mean, Destiny in its interface and its gameplay is very impressive. I really like the interface, even though it's like a cross PC console kind of thing that a lot of people have adopted, where you have like a cursor, for your main thing. I still feel that, Bungie may still makes good games, but again, they kind of got screwed over and screwed themselves over, and also they got Paul McCartney to make a lot of the music, which is weird for Destiny and Destiny 2, and they've kind of had that as a live service game, and now they're doing Marathon, but reskinning Marathon as like the popular modern Tarkov game or something, and now I just heard it's becoming a hero shooter, and it's like, God help us. Again, I want to have faith and believe that, there will be good games in the future. Do I see them coming from 343? Not really. If I have to, be tolerant of the bad things of their games, I don't think it's worth playing them. If it's another mid sci-fi shooter, why bother? There's a million other Call of Duties. Why buy one Call of Duty over the other? And same thing with Bungie. I think it's possible Bungie could make something, but from everything I'm hearing about what they're making and who they're consulting, from friggin' Valorant, it does not sound promising to be an interesting, innovative game, especially a single player one. It's going to be multiplayer only, and the single player experience of Halo. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much all I have to say about this franchise and its future. And that's that. It's basically I don't know how they win me back, but I skipped Halo 5, and I'm probably gonna skip whatever game comes out after this. I'll see you guys later. Bye.